Hello, everybody. Brad Tompkins here, VMUG Executive Director. And with me, I have Mr. McCain. Chris, how are you doing today?
Brad, I'm doing great, man. This is a pretty cool idea. So I'm excited to do this today. I feel like Peyton,
I
and
know, I
or
know.
maybe you could be Peyton, I could be Eli. Peyton has the bigger Southern drawl, so it has to be you.
I hear you. Sounds good. So if you're just watching this, it's just an idea that we had on kind of recapping some portions of the keynote, not the entire thing. I did a video on Hock Tan's piece a little bit earlier. I can throw that into the into the chat or something, so you can catch that if you want to. But I wanted to invite Chris to this one so we can kind of dig deep into Paul Turner. So without further ado here, let me share my screen, and we're going to be co-watching this keynote. Optimize sound, got all that checked out.
This is so for those of you that were not there, this is the VCF specific segment of the Explore keynote.
All right, so to catch you up, Hock Tan had just got done with his part, and now Paul Turner, as you can see, Vice President of Products at VCF, is going to come out. So we're going to kind of be stopping this along the way and putting in some thoughts and input. Let's get started here.
Yeah, make sure you're quick with that pause button.
Hey, great to be here, and what an audience. So you heard Hock talk about silos, data center silos, and how they're more expensive. They slow us down. They cost us. But let's really understand that a little more. The challenge is that it's not just about the technology. It's multiple security processes and policies. It's multiple approval processes and workflows, multiple upgrade and lifecycle processes, complicated root cause analysis, poor capacity optimization, and much, much more. For leading businesses today, and that's all of you, IT is meant to be a business enabler, essential for success. But to deliver on that promise, IT itself must be agile. We have to be able to deliver services and applications quicker to meet business need. Let's break the silos of IT and enable an agile IT. So IDC studied the impact of silos on cost. And you can see from their summary that it led to 42% higher cost of operations. That's people in this room. That is your cost of your people. That is your operations. That's your people cost. And it led to 34% higher infrastructure cost. That is capital expenditures. That's dollars that you spend on equipment.
All right, Chris, I want to stop it right there from an aspect, and he goes through the rest of these numbers here, but I know he got these numbers from IDC, but one thing that kind of baffles me is the infrastructure costs on the 34% higher. I would imagine that would be siloed versus running something like VCF. And, candidly, most VMUG members are probably in companies that are, they're still running pretty siloed. Any thoughts or insight on that particular number?
Yeah, look, I don't know the ins and outs like you don't either, but I'm with you on that one. It's got to be looking at when you take traditional infrastructure and you've got dedicated storage, dedicated networking, dedicated compute, dedicated security. There's a larger footprint there. There's a larger cost there associated, as opposed to trying to figure out how do we build a private cloud where we can start to bring some of these things together and eliminate redundancy across the infrastructure. So, maybe that number's high for some customers, but, I think, you mentioned it before, even if that's 20%, that's still a pretty good savings, right?
Absolutely. And I liked his comment on people and processes. I mean, I feel like technology-wise, we're there. Yes, improvements can be made, but with a product like VCF, the challenge is not the technology, it's the people and processes. And, Chris, you keynote on this all the time, about getting people together and understanding what this means to run the cloud operating model. It's not a destination, it's an operating model. And I think that's the toughest part now, not so much the technology.
Definitely. Look, I think what's really refreshing for me internally from Broadcom is to see now this big push to make the product easier to consume. when you look at it, look, I've been trying to sell VCF for at least 6 or 7 years now, right? And this is when VCF was just kind of a term with a bunch of different products in different divisions. And so Hawk's really putting his money where his mouth is, from the sense of, if we're going to go tell customers that they should build private cloud platform engineering teams, well, he's done exactly that inside of Broadcom. He brought together the compute team with the networking, with the storage, with the automation, with the operations. Says, you guys aren't going to be 5 distinct groups. You're going to be one group building one platform for private cloud for our customers. So really the I guess poster child for restructuring IT organizations, he's already done that from a product perspective. So it's really impressive to see him do that, because it's just not lip service, right? We're not telling our customers to do it, yet we're not doing it.
Absolutely. And I think he touches on that a little bit later, but let's continue on. And you might have noticed I did do 1.5 speed on this thing, so we can get through it a little bit quicker.
Yeah, no worries.
Now, it was not just you. We built products that were focused on each of the silos.
This is exactly what you were talking about,
We
Chris.
needed to do better.
Almost like I heard
we
this
had to bridge
before.
our silos. We didn't have single sign-on authentication across our products. We didn't have common policies. You talked about us not having unified tagging. You talked about us having independent product lifecycle, independent logging, no common alerting. We could do better, and we have. And it is VMware Cloud Foundation. We
And did all this
unified
come
of
to
our
light in
teams together.
5.2, Chris?
Huge undertaking.
Like all those things that he talked about, the single sign-on and all that kind of stuff. Is that
I
in
mean,
5.2?
I think all these things are priorities that we know we have to do, and you're going to see over 5.2 and into the later versions that all of these are going to become reality. And the more we continue to engineer on this, the easier it's going to become to consume, which is also going to make it easier then to actually build a private cloud team, because the whole platform will support that.
Love it.
We focus them on delivering the best private cloud platform for you, our customers. And VCF is more than just a technology upgrade. VCF is a strategic choice for you to deliver a cloud experience to your business, an agile cloud experience, but with the privacy controls, the security, and the resilience that you need from a platform for your applications.
Can you pause it there?
We have overcome.
I think there's a key there, right? And it's something that I don't think we hit on enough as an organization. And it's something that at the VMUG in Boston, we kind of talked a little bit about with Hawk. But when somebody goes to the public cloud, they sort of embrace everything that is the public cloud. They don't nitpick the different pieces. They just say, oh, it's the public cloud, it's AWS, it's GCP, it's Azure, and whatever the underlying network is, it is, right? But then we go into the private cloud and, oh, we got to nitpick this and we got to nitpick that. I think we need customers to kind of take that same mindset of public cloud and drop it into the private cloud and say, okay, I need to realize value. I need to operate like the public cloud. I want all of the characteristics that Paul was just talking about, but that doesn't mean that my networking team has to do anything differently. Just build me a physical fabric that passes packets. Let me treat it like an SLA requirement in the public cloud, and I'll go build what I need to build. So the easier we make VCF, then the more power we have to go out and say, hey, physical networking team, just pass packets. And whatever you guys want to do, we don't care as long as you pass packets. And we'll consume networking from a software perspective and run it on top of whatever it is you want to build. So there's so many different aspects to this, that not just from a technology perspective, but from a people perspective, we have to think differently about the way that architecture is going to be designed and engineered and implemented and managed in order for the public cloud or the private cloud to be successful.
Yeah, it really is a mind shift. And it's one that I think people are getting closer and closer to understanding and getting used to, and actually deploying that new mind shift. But it still is a challenge for some as well.
Yeah, it will be for
silos,
a couple years
so
anyway.
that you can overcome yours. So VCF integrates compute, storage, networking, automation, and operations all into one unified platform. It's a software-defined platform for agility, but you don't have to take second best. Why? Because we're the #1 market leader in software-defined compute with vSphere. We're the #1 market leader in software-defined networking with NSX. We're the #1 market leader in hybrid cloud management with our management products. And we're a leader in hyper-converged infrastructure with vSAN.
So just a quick thing on that. Obviously, with all the changes that Broadcom has happened in the past, 6, 9 months or whatever, people, some were upset to begin with, and you heard a lot of, oh, I'm going to go to a different hypervisor this, different hypervisor that. But now people are coming around and they're like, you know what? What Paul just said is they are #1 market leader. Nobody disputes that. And at the end of the day, you're not going to find another solution like vSphere. And so I think that is where people are at from when I'm out, I'm out at user cons and talking to members, I think the emotion has started to calm down and people are like, yeah, they are the best. So let's figure out how to move forward with the best, because that's what everybody wants.
Yeah,
No second best.
Some people will say Hawk's directness and just how concise he is with what he says, it can come across as, oh, well, you don't have a choice. This is the only way. But what's interesting when you think about what he's really saying is, look, we want to be the best private cloud you can be, but maybe a full-blown private cloud is not for everybody. Now, what you're saying, and what I think is absolutely going to happen, is people are going to realize, okay, I do want a private cloud, and they are the best in the hypervisor, in the SDN space, in the management space, in the hyperconverged space. But I almost feel like it's almost like feelings were hurt because they weren't given the choice of all of these different things coming together, right? But the reality is, when you put them all together, you are creating what is pretty much the best private cloud you could have. It just seems like it was forced, but realistically, everybody's going to come around to the idea that this is how we need to operate, right? And there really isn't another solution that's going to give you the full breadth of what we have. Now, interestingly enough, we're not suggesting that you have to get rid of traditional storage, right? But you complement that with virtual SAN, and you find opportunities to start to use virtual SAN, and then your traditional storage becomes this dedicated storage for specific use cases. But virtual SAN, with its tight integration into the hypervisor and the networking and being able to automate and do all of these different things, it changes the processes for the entire organization. And then you realize the tremendous value of all of these things coming together. But a lot of times, just historically, customers weren't doing all of those things because they were difficult to do. But if we make them easy to consume and we make it easy to integrate automation and operations, now there's going to be this aha moment that customers have. This is, yes, all right, I do need this. And I think Hawk being steadfast in private cloud is going to get people to realize this is the new normal. And we're not trying to be everything to everyone everywhere. We're trying to be the best private cloud that you can be. And I think Paul is proving that with some of the things he's saying.
Well said.
And what's amazing is that if you do the TCO analysis versus the public cloud, you get 40% better total cost of ownership for running a VCF-based private cloud than a native public cloud. And that's based on our customer analysis over the past 3 years. So let's dive into it a little.
For a second.
Automation.
That's another interesting point, right? He said we did our own cost analysis and blah, blah, but nobody's ever argued that the public cloud is actually cheaper, right? Unless you have just one little VM or something like that. But once you start taking this to scale, nobody has ever argued that the public cloud is actually cheaper in the long run than the private cloud. So the cost part of this, it's not even part of the debate. But the public cloud has just offered other characteristics that we couldn't get on the private cloud. But when that private cloud starts to offer all of that same scale and agility that you can get with the public cloud, now you're looking at being able to solve business problems in an identical way, but one of them is going to be much cheaper than the other one. And that's not even something that's been debated by anybody, really. I mean, you can find tons of high-level CEOs that know the public cloud is more expensive, but they like the OpEx model for the characteristics they're getting. Once you can get the CapEx model with all the same characteristics, it's going to be pretty good.
Yeah, and I mean, they went to the hyperscalers because of the speed, the agility, those kind of things. And as that starts to become more and more prevalent on-prem, then you're right. I mean, price has never been part of that conversation because it is more expensive to run it up in the cloud.
Yeah. I also think it's interesting too that I read a lot about, Broadcom's going to subscription. This subscription thing was coming down the pipe for a long time. This wasn't a Broadcom thing. and it's not even new to the industry. So for somebody, I think it's kind of irresponsible for somebody to write, oh, now it's going to subscription. The subscription's been a normal thing for a long time. I feel like we're the last ones to the party on the subscription space. So that one's kind of a moot point to me from an argument perspective.
For all of you to run it at scale, a modern agile developer interface, and advanced services that we use to extend on the platform. So the infrastructure and operations helps you as virtual admins or cloud admins automate, manage capacity, optimize it, do green data center efficiency management, all of your security patches, your lifecycle, all unified into our automation and operations. Modern developer interface is all about agility. How do I deliver applications quicker? A cloud experience through service catalogs. Infrastructure as code with native Kubernetes so that your developers can have the agile platform they need. VMs and containers native in the platform. CNCF compliant Kubernetes native in the platform. AI and ML ready applications native in the platform. And the last layer we're going to touch on a little later are advanced services, because if you've got this best private cloud that you can put in place, there's a whole ton of extended services we can provide with advanced firewall, advanced load balancing, managed data services, AI that we talked about earlier with private AI, but we'll talk more on that later. So VCF is a platform that we've also been innovating on, even in the most recent innovations. And I want to highlight just a few of them. vSAN Max, ability for us.
All right, so let's go through, he goes through about 3 of these, but vSAN Max, break that down a little bit more. I know it decouples itself from the compute, but how was it done before? How is it done now with vSAN Max? And what does that mean for the average vMug user?
Yeah, I mean, look, when Virtual SAN first came out, right, it was really heavily tied to the specific clusters upon which those disks were running, and it kind of pigeonholed the storage for a particular segment. And it was a big shift in the way you thought about storage, because typically I just had this storage and I could present it to wherever. And now I was kind of saying, oh, well, then the storage is only here for these. So the engineering that we've done has been to kind of take the architecture of vSAN being software driven to just these bunch of disks, but instead of isolating it to one particular portion of the environment, we open it up for everything to have access to it. So it operates in sort of a hybrid type of model, where same like your traditional storage did, that can go anywhere. Well, the vSAN Max can go anywhere. It's not tied to a particular cluster, so to speak.
Got it.
To disaggregate storage and compute so that you can grow them independently. Live patching for NSX and ESX. All of you as admins out there will love this. The ability for us to take those security patches, apply them onto an environment, and do it without maintenance mode. Wow.
So that's a big one. vMug members have been asking for this for a while, and it's nice to finally see this in 5.2. A lot of members joke, they're like, oh, it's great in 5.2, but I'm not going to be able to experience until the next jump up, because that's when you can actually do it. But I think that's a big one, pretty self-explanatory, but you can add whatever you want to on that one, Chris.
Well, I don't need to add anything from a technology perspective, but I'm going to jump on the vMug members thing, because I think it's in the vMug community more than any community where you hear the constant grumblings about the updates, because these are the guys in the trenches, guys and girls in the trenches, right? These are the ones that have to push that button that says do the update, right? And their stomach is in a knot, and they're like, oh,
we've all been there.
Please let this work, right? And so the more we can improve upon that patching mechanism, the more we can make it so that, like Paul was saying, that systems don't have to go offline in order for these things to happen. Then that vMug community is gonna be like, oh, okay, this, I like it, right? I don't have to worry every time I want to do a patch. And just for me, from the perspective of seeing, NSX evolve and Virtual SAN evolve and ARIA evolve, and having to manage all of these different versions across all of this different software, it's almost like we were shooting ourselves in the foot, because we had so many different products on different versions. So seeing all of these things come together and I guess stabilize into a singular version model and then step with each other is going to be beautiful.
And these are things that could help you save on licensing costs as well, because now maybe you're running in an N+2 environment. Now you might feel more comfortable doing it in an N+1, because you don't need to take those hosts off to do the live patching.
Yeah, that's very true too.
Able to actually hot patch ESX, hot patch NSX. VCF import, the ability for us to take all of your existing environments. You don't have to migrate them. Bring them over into VCF and get all of the lifecycle management that you want from the platform.
That one's huge.
You don't have to move your workloads.
That
Yeah,
one's very
so let's
big.
spend some time on that one. That's another one that people have been asking for because Greenfield VCF,
Yeah.
has worked well for, in the past. Arguably, it definitely has gotten better, but people want to get to that and they couldn't, but now they can. So
Yeah.
talk a little bit, Chris, about what that means and who can import right now. I don't think NSX is part of that, but I know that's coming. So where does that import stand right now with 5.2?
Yeah, look, I can share just my own experience with so many customers. Like I said, I've been trying to sell VCF for a long time, even before it became what it is today and making it so much easier. But, really the target customer historically for VCF was the customer that was building a greenfield data center. And I think now this term private cloud has superseded what we used to call the software-defined data center, which I still like that term. There's a lot of power and value in that term. But if you were building a brand new data center, then it made sense. Okay, I'm going to stand up VCF and I'm going to have the full stack and it's this fresh new environment. And so I'll do that. But not everybody had that luxury of building a new data center. So you try and go talk to them about VCF, but they have this existing architecture. And now you're trying to retrofit this public cloud model into this traditional architecture. It really didn't work out so well. So now with 5.2, being able to get into a customer environment, say, okay, we're going to stand up the beginnings of a VCF through the management domains, and then consume the things that you already have into these management domains as the workload domains, thereby then giving you all the characteristics of what a greenfield would have from a patching perspective, which is huge. That now customers are saying, okay, now this makes sense to me. I don't have to wait until I build something brand new. I can take everything that I have and start to realize value out of the existing VCF architecture by, consuming that into a new environment.
And then you can add NSX or whatever else you need to it when the time comes.
Yeah, look, and that's the other thing too. When you think about the different pieces of VCF, we are in no way suggesting that you buy VCF on a Friday and on Monday you are automatically all in on every component of the private cloud. This is going to be an iterative process for those brownfield environments where you try and figure out, okay, I've got the management domains and I'm consumed in. So maybe my first goal is to tackle my patching mechanisms. I had a very large bank come up to me in Explore in Las Vegas. They just kind of tapped me on the shoulder. I'd never seen these guys in my life. I guess they saw me on the main stage keynote, right? Just wanted to talk to me about their environment. So he tapped me on the shoulder. He said, hey, we want to talk to you about our environment. And their environment is so large that it takes them almost 18 months from start to finish to get things patched. And they're hoping that they can cut that down to less than 6 months when they look at the changes that we're making, right? So, I mean, these are things that are tremendous benefits to our customers. That's just one thing. So, you need to figure out for your organization, where is the biggest value for me in the private cloud? Is it in the patching? Is it in going to software overlay networking with VCF networking or NSX, right? Is it adding security with vDefend? Is it moving to virtual SAN? Is it automation? Is it using ARIA operations for networks to get a better idea? There's so many choices that you have, but it's not an all or nothing proposition, and it's not an all at once proposition. It's figure out where do you get the most value and then iterate your way so that, maybe 2 years from now you're taking advantage of all of these components. And now you see a radical shift in the way your organization is operating because you've truly embraced the whole private cloud idea.
Yeah, I mean, great point. You're not going to go from 0 to VCF overnight, but
No.
Take your time, look at the things that are going to benefit you most, and start there.
Yeah, but look, I still have customers that are building brand new data centers, right? Standing up VCF with vDefend and a default firewall rule of block. And if you want to bring your app into this new environment, you better tell me exactly how I should build my rules, and then you'll get your app in there. So the great part about all of this is there's not just one way to do these things. So we talk a lot about choice, and even though it looks like, oh, well, you're making me use vSphere, you still get the choice of how you want to implement these things. You get the choice of how conservative or aggressive you want to be. What we're not giving you the choice of is how do you want to build the private cloud? Because we know we can build the best private cloud. You want to build it on top of a Cisco fabric, Arista fabric, Juniper fabric, that's fine, whichever vendor you like for your networking gear, but we know that we can be the best vendor for building everything above that piece.
Absolutely.
Just CPU virtualization, GPU virtualization, and DPU virtualization, and much, much more. We'll continue to innovate. So all of you also want flexibility of choice. VCF is a private cloud platform, but it's not a private cloud platform that is restricted and limited to your data center.
I love license
you have the choice
portability.
to deploy VCF, the private cloud platform. Think of it as an operations platform into your choice of deployment. You can deploy it into the hyperscalers, AWS, Google Cloud, Microsoft Azure. You can deploy it with our CSP partners, our managed services partners, like IBM Cloud. We have more than 300 of these partners. You can deploy it with our OEMs, who are building engineered solutions that are optimized for running VCF. You get the best experience with these optimized solutions, delivered from Dell, HPE, Fujitsu, Lenovo, Hitachi, and NEC, and more to come. And all of it is available through our vast network of distributors and resellers with more than 14,000 partners who are there to help you, not just help you buy the product, but help you implement the product and adopt the product and use it.
Yeah, I think that actually plays to what I was just talking about, right? You get choice in what you want to build it on. You get choice into where it's going to sit, but why do you want choice in, a specific software overlay? It would make sense that the best one is the one we're going to build as part of the hypervisor. Why do you want choice in what type of firewall solution you're going to put in the hypervisor? Right, those types of things, we're going to be able to build it better because we own the hypervisor. We don't disallow people into the hypervisor because we don't want them there from a competitive standpoint. Now, does it give us a competitive advantage? Sure, but if you think about it this way, what if we open the hypervisor again, and what if we had 100 or 1,000 different partners that were all building plugins that run in the hypervisor? Who's supposed to QA that vendor 1 and vendor 998 actually work together, right? There's no way to do that. So closing off the hypervisor, yes, it creates a competitive advantage for us, but you know what it does even better is it builds a stable platform for the customer so that there's not something that can go wrong between different vendors. So, there's times I want choice, and there's times I want make it easy, make it stable, make it so that I know I don't have to worry about this thing going down.
That's right. And you got workloads, and it's all about run the workload where it runs best. And if that is in the hyperscalers, you can do that. It's not a problem. But like you said, Chris, why would you want to run one app with the Google native, another one in AWS native, and then another one on-prem with VCF? Like that's way too complicated.
Yeah, it is complicated, but and I think that message, what you just said, it gets lost a little bit and again, the way Hawk comes out and says private cloud. It's not that there isn't room for the public cloud, right? I mean, AWS has its advantages, and maybe there's something in AWS you want for a particular cloud native microservice-based application, and so you put it there. But I think what Hawk's trying to get everybody to realize is that, man, we made this really irresponsibly quick move to say cloud first. And we started moving stuff to the cloud that really should not have been in the cloud.
That's right.
And so now it's like, all right, well, let's go back and look, and maybe it'd be smarter to bring those things on-prem. So Cloud Smart, which I think came out like 4 years after Cloud First, that would have been a better initiative to start with than just Cloud First, right? But just moving to the cloud for the sake of moving to the cloud, very irresponsible. Moving to the cloud because I've looked at the business case, and I've looked at the pros and cons, and I understand the architecture of AWS versus GCP versus Azure, and I know what it is I want from any one of those vendors for this application to run. That's a smart business decision. But ultimately, those are the one-offs that I'm going to put in different places. The bulk of the other things in my environment are probably the things that I should have in my private cloud.
Yep. All right, so this
is available today.
A highlight.
Why not hear from a customer? So
and a shout out
to
Jeremy here. We're not going to watch all of this, but Jeremy
at
is
GCI, the Enterprise Cloud Platform Group, is responsible for providing the infrastructure.
And he is a local leader up in Alaska. So it was super cool. He was sitting about 3 rows in front of me. Of course, he had front row seats. Chris, you were in the green room, of course, getting ready for your main stage preview there. But anyway, super cool to see Jeremy and see him highlighted. If you haven't seen this, go ahead and watch that. All of this is on demand, of course, but we're going to slip ahead here.
Yeah. You know what was really cool, though, this year is the customers weren't these gigantic organizations, right? Sometimes if you look at the history, when we had Nike and we had Marriott and we've had IBM, we've had all these sometimes that doesn't resonate when you're sitting in the audience. You're like, well, my organization's not that big, right? I don't do all of those things that they do. But this year, Jeremy, GCI, very critical infrastructure company, but not necessarily the size of a Marriott or a Nike, right? So I think it was cool to kind of pare this down to organizations that could resonate with a larger percentage of the audience.
I agree too. It kind of made it more real, more obtainable because, I don't know what Jeremy's budget is, but like you said, it's not the budget of an AT&T or a Dish Network. And, and he's a leader. We talk to him all the time, and I had no idea he was going to get highlighted. So that was one of the highlights for me at the keynote.
Yeah.
All right, so we're moving ahead. He's going to talk about VCF 9 here. So let's listen to what Paul has to say.
Delighted to announce today VMware Cloud Foundation 9. VMware Cloud Foundation 9 is a unified platform to break down those technology silos, an agile, automated cloud experience for all of your workloads, and a secure platform trusted for your most critical, confidential workloads, helping protect against malicious actors, disasters, ransomware. So it's a platform for helping you build, deploy, and operate, and consume. We've integrated into a new VCF operations console, all of our events, logs, diagnostics, and we're allowing you to root cause analysis issues.
So is that a new console for 9, Chris, or is that what came out in 5 too?
Yeah, I think that's new for 9. I'd have to look and see. Some of these things are starting to blur now, which goes where. But what's really exciting about 9 is 9 will be really that first big release that's under the Broadcom umbrella, that's under this big push that says, we got to make things. So right now we're trying to fill that gap, right? Where can we make things a little easier? And it's 5.2, but when everything gets to 9, that's where the rubber is going to hit the road, and you're going to start to see some tremendous improvements. A good friend of mine that worked for us for a long time, Paul Mancuso, was a big advocate of trying to consolidate all of these different dashboards, right? How do we find one place where we can do this? And that's what 9 is really going to bring, is this unified place for operations and automation. It's going to be great.
I mean, that's a bold statement to say 9.0 is going to be the big one, because I think 5.2 had a lot of good stuff in there that we just covered. So that's exciting news to come. Hopefully we'll hear more about that in Barcelona.
Choose quickly and maintain continuous service uptime. This means your network insight logs integrated, your log insight logs integrated, your ops logs integrated, everything into one place so that you can root cause analysis and correlate issues. We extended this with Skyline. Skyline we've actually taken and integrated it now back into the product. We take the rules that are coming from all of our common issues, we push the rules into your product, we analyze for those common issues, and then if we can't discover the issue, we auto-publish logs back to VMware for further analysis so that we do it all automatically for you.
So Skyline, that was big news when they announced the changing, I'll say, not discontinuation, but changing of Skyline. So that's going to now be part of VCF. I think portions of it are also going to be in VVF. But I know a lot of our members love Skyline, they use Skyline. So it is going to stay a technology that you can consume. Part of it's going to be in VVF, part's going to be in VCF. Chris, I know that's not part of the division you're in, but I think I explained that right. But just folks know that the Skyline name might go away, but the technology isn't. It's going to get baked into products. Yeah,
I remember actually at the VMUG Leader event in Las Vegas at Explorer, somebody asked that specifically of Hawk, and Hawk said, it's not, the name might go away, but all the features of Skyline we're going to put into the product. So I think it's something that a lot of customers actually really appreciate, VMware being able to take all of that, those analytics and heuristics and being able to utilize that data to help be proactive, but to know that it's going to still be maintained in the product is really cool.
Agreed.
We centralized governance for policies. OAuth brokered identity as a common identity system across all products. Unified license management. Unified fleet management to allow you to plan, schedule, patch, and upgrade your entire private cloud. And we also are very focused on agility. Agility also means that you need to look at, how do I provide tenancy into the platform? Because if I can actually manage different tenant groups or different application groups, I can set business and service policy controls on those applications. And then I can do chargeback and accounting based on what each of the application teams.
So why is that big?
Well, because a lot of times people have this idea that tenancy, or I mean, the concept of a VPC, a virtual private cloud, is part of the reason they go to the public cloud, right? Is to get this, sort of allocation of space. But the on-prem environment, we've often seen it as just this really big allocation of space. So being able to take that same tenancy model from the public cloud and bring that into the private cloud, where I can create a VPC for a particular division, for a particular app, for a particular project, where I now have not just the compute resources, but dedicated networking resources for that VPC, dedicated security configurations for that VPC. I'm really starting to build the equivalent of that public cloud on my private cloud. So that's a big capability that I think a lot of our customers, once they start to realize the use case in a private cloud, it's going to drive some good value.
So potentially you could set up a tenant for, say, accounting, and that's all of their apps, and then engineering, and that's all of their apps. And it not just does have like an additional security layer between that, but also from a bill back perspective, you can now accurately bill that back and say, hey, accounting, here's your bill. If it gets out of hand, then they can work on, hey, IT, how do we reduce this, and maybe identify some apps out there that aren't needed anymore, or what have you.
But yeah, whether it's actually billing them or just showing them, whether it's just because I want an isolation between these different things, right? If I've got people that manage the accounting applications themselves, I don't want them having access to other parts of the infrastructure where they can impact things. So the ability to create these boundaries, these logical boundaries, where I can operate and consume within that boundary, it just opens the doors for us to be able to do a lot of things within the enterprise. And look, this is not something where just because I create one boundary, now I've got to have 99 of them. I might have 5 boundaries for different things, and then one big pool of resources where everything operates as normal. So again, I'm designing for a business purpose. I'm not just leveraging a technology just because the technology is there, but my business says I need this VPC for accounting. I need this VPC for, sales, whatever, HR. But then everything else goes just all together like it would if I wasn't using any VPC. So solving business problems, that's the key driver. And
again, that's a mentality shift. That's a mentality shift of thinking like a hyperscaler, but doing it on-prem.
Yeah, exactly.
Are doing and using, all integrated into a single new VCF automation console. Application blueprints to build out a service catalog with multi-step workflows and a very simple low-code interface for development. And a native infrastructure as a service, which extends beyond the Kubernetes that we just talked about, the runtime Kubernetes, because we brought in credentials management service, a storage, networking, and load balancer service native in the platform, a registry service, a secret service, a data services management for persistent applications, and integrated monitoring, all now as part of one unified VCF platform. So we also extended the core. Advanced memory tiering. You look at the cost of systems today, memory is taking about 50% of the cost of the system. Imagine you could tier that very expensive and high-cost primary memory and tier it out to NVMe. Well, you can. We can dramatically reduce the cost of memory on systems. vSAN deduplication, vSAN ESA with multi-site replication and deep snapshots. And I'm really happy with our native VPCs. These VPCs that we built out with NSX, we've actually integrated now into vCenter. It's an extension of vCenter's networking. No more management of NSX Manager, no more management of edge servers. You can deploy VPCs natively.
And those VPCs are where the tenancies
many of you are probably
right?
thinking, well, how can I get there?
The tenants
Seems
are.
daunting.
Yep.
But VCF allows you to get to where you want to be at your own pace. And the best way is to take a private cloud maturity model assessment. Scan this. Please join us on Wednesday. We have a session to actually go through it. And also you'll be able to sign up for this. All of you should take this. Very quickly, an outside-in assessment of your needs, mapping to your business outcomes, and defining a pathway for you with the highest ROI. So one thing for me to talk about it, but let's actually hear from a customer.
All right, so
CPS
this is
Energy
another
serves
customer
1.5
coming
million
up. This
customers
was
in San Antonio, Texas.
San
Please join me in
Antonio, I
welcoming
think,
CIO Evan O'Mahony.
gas and water, something like that. But pretty interesting. Again, this is not, GE. This is not some huge customer. Obviously, they're big in San Antonio, but San Antonio is not like a Chicago
or LA. It's a regional
or LA.
energy company, right?
Yeah.
So there's lots of these around the country. They all have similar problems. They all need to make sure that they have highly available infrastructure. They all need to make sure that they're resilient against ransomware attacks and things like that. So yeah, it's pretty cool to see just something that can resonate with a lot of the audience.
And now we're up to
With that, I'm
advanced
going to hand over to
services
Valentina
here,
and Chris,
and
two of our senior
we are
technologists here
not
at
going to
Broadcom.
go through this.
Yeah,
but
go back.
I gotta,
Just go back a little bit. Let's go to the just go to that slide that he ended on, if we could, because I think there's right here.
Scenario that'll be familiar.
Yeah.
So just pause there. I think this is important, right? Because when we look at what we have today as Broadcom, you have to look at it from a purchasing and packaging, but then you have to look at it from an architectural perspective. So all of these things that we see here are add-ons to VCF, but in the case of how they're actually engineered, they are built into VCF, if that makes sense, right? So advanced security, you buy the firewall or you buy ATP as an add-on, but the firewall is functioning in the hypervisor. So embedded into the hypervisor, but bought as an add-on. ATP, the IDS IPS, is functioning in the hypervisor, but it's bought as an add-on. So you don't want to confuse architecture with packaging and pricing. So the firewall is embedded into the hypervisor, but it's bought separately. So sometimes there's this confusion where if I say, oh, the firewall is embedded in the hypervisor, then people think, oh, well, then I get it with VCF. But that's not the case, right? Data services, disaster recovery. The disaster recovery is leveraging the hypervisor to be able to execute things that will copy and bring back, restore, right? So the hypervisor is involved. It's in the hypervisor that these types of things are being executed, but it's something that I'm buying extra. So we have to be able to delineate between the architectural advantage that we get because the hypervisor is driving these things versus what am I getting as part of the core VCF and what is an add-on to it.
So if you're buying the add-on, architecturally, it's already there. It's just a matter of paying for it, buying a key, plugging it in, and boom, now it's operational.
Yes and no. So in other words, the VIBs, the VMware infrastructure bundles for the firewall, they do get deployed into it, right? So they're not there already, but the VIBs get deployed. But once they're deployed, it's in the hypervisor. So it's not like it's this third-party software thing that's happening somewhere. It's there. It's in the hypervisor, but it was licensed separately. It's installed in the individual VIBs, etc. Avi is a little different because Avi doesn't happen in the hypervisor, but we've got service engines that get deployed, right? But it's leveraging a deep, rich contextual understanding through the hypervisor. Private AI is engineering in the hypervisor to be able to leverage the GPUs from NVIDIA and to be able to do scheduling and things like that. Edge orchestration, of course, is happening in different locations across all different. But, I think it's just important to make sure that we understand these things here on the screen, even if architecturally they are part of the hypervisor, they are add-ons to VCF.
Understood. And, Broadcom's talking about adding to this service catalog, and, who knows where that's going to go. But that is exciting because that's how the cloud operates and the hyperscalers operate. And this is going to be very similar.
Yeah. That's the key. When you go to the public cloud, you get a core offering, and then other things that you want to add on, you add on. Well, it's the same thing. You're going to build a private cloud, and then other things you want to add on, you add on, right? So if you're all in on the public cloud being that way, well, we're trying to duplicate that model here, giving you those same level of services and add-ons that you would expect.
Awesome. Well, that is the end of the portion that we are going to be going through today. But Chris, I want to just thank you for coming out. We appreciate you coming out and spending some time going through this. Maybe we'll have you back and you can go through your session. Of course, you're on right next after this from an Explorer perspective, which was cool to see up on stage with your rocking kicks.
Yeah, thanks. The shoes took on a life of their own in Las Vegas. I had so many people asking me about where they get LinkedIn. I had a whole bunch of people reaching out. Where do I buy these? Where do I buy these? So
Nice.
But no, it was a lot of fun, and this has been fun to talk with you about this, and maybe we'll find some other videos we can talk through as well. But I enjoyed it. Thank you.
Great. Sounds good. Well, thanks everybody for listening in. And if you have any comments, questions, or things you'd like to see us do, let us know, and we'll do our best to accommodate. Thank you.